Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year to you. Happy and healthy, hopefully. Welcome to the Constitution and, I beg your pardon, I've got the Constitution meeting on my brain because it's just after this meeting. The Community and Housing Overview and Scrutiny Committee on the 14th of January. Good Lord. We'll go straight into the agenda. Apologies, please.
Thank you, Chair. I haven't received any apologies, but I've got two substitutions. Councillor Linda Thew is substituting for Councillor Dale Sylvester, and Councillor Carol Ellis is substituting for Councillor Dennis Hutchinson.
Thank you.
We've got Sheldon Rob.
Sure.
Chair.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, apologies from Councillor Pam Banks, and also I will need to leave this meeting at just after 11 o'clock to attend another meeting.
Thank you. I think we're going to have a mass exodus around about that time because there's been a clash of meetings. So I think we've got you all noted who are leaving. So are there anybody else? No? Okay. Right, declarations of interest, including whipping declarations. Do we have any? No. Agenda item 3, the minutes, pages 5 to 8. That's to confirm as a correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of December. Can we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Bibby and Councillor Rush. Thank you very much. Could we have a show of hands? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Moving on to agenda item 4. Now, this is a new standing item, which I believe is going to be on every scrutiny meeting forthwith. And it's urgent matters as agreed by the chair. And after that big build-up, we haven't got any. So we move on to agenda item 5. The forward work programme and action tracking pages 9 to 18. And we move over to Kerry. Thank you, Kerry.
Thank you, Chair. Members will see the current forward work programme on page 13 of their papers. There's only been one change since the last meeting, and that is the update on installation of meters, which has been moved, you'll notice, to items to be scheduled. This was a request from Councillor Platt, I believe, and it was around the comparative costs. So it was just, we've moved that down. It will be allocated to another date. It's just that it's felt that it needs to be on a 12-month cycle in order to provide comparative costs and the accurate data to members. So that's the only change to the forward work programme. Moving on to the action sheet on page 17, a letter to DWP has been drafted and shared with the chair. That's just currently being amended at the moment and will be sent out later this week. And the only other action that hasn't got any commentary is the request for information within the homelessness update. That information is now included within the agenda item 10. So that one is completed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kerry. Councillor Bibby.
Just like to say, Madam Chair, just a big thanks to the site visit we had at a D2 Pro property that was located in my ward. I think it was very informative and very reassuring to those members who were in attendance.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up, Councillor Bibby. We all came to your neck of the woods. It was very pleasant. And I think we were quite enlightened by it, weren't we? Thank you. Do we have any suggestions at all for the forward work programme? Anyone want anything included? No. Okay. Well, can we have a move? Oh, we've got 3 recommendations. I'm going to take them as read. I'm not going to read them all. So can I have a mover? Councillor Bibby, thank you. Seconder? Councillor Davis, thank you very much. Can we have a show of hands? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Moving on now to agenda item 6, the Housing Revenue Account 30-year financial business plan, pages 19 to 26. And we're going to the Chief Officer, Vicky Clark.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. So a previous report has been presented to this committee on the proposed HRA business plan for 22-27. So this report provides an update on proposed funding changes to the capital programme, which will enable us to increase funding for voids. So the total proposed capital programme for 26-27 is £27.8 million, and the breakdown of the spend is highlighted in the report. The proposed changes are to increase the voids budget available, and I think previously when we've consulted with members around the HRA business plan, that was something that members were keen for us to do. The increase proposed is due to two things: that we have been given an additional 2.1 ORP funding for 26-27, which releases some of our capital programme funding, and a decision has been made to increase the life cycle of some of our property components, namely kitchens and bathrooms, from 20 to 25 years. That is down to the quality of the products that we're using, but obviously if a tenant reports that there is an issue with either of those components, they deem that they want replacing, then we would still replace them. So this releases a further £1 million to be allocated to the voids capital programme. So that means now that the total void budget is £8.6 million. So if we base our current average void cost of £21,000, it does provide sufficient budget for us to complete around 413 void properties in 26-27. However, the average void turnover per annum is 430 voids. So although it does allow us to bring more properties back into use and reduce pressure on the council fund, particularly in relation to homelessness, and enables that increase in rental income, we do have to acknowledge that there continues to be a pressure on the voids budget. We do meet monthly with our finance colleagues to continue to monitor this pressure and obviously look for any opportunities that we have to maximise the funding available, and that includes requesting additional funding from Welsh Government through programmes like the Transitional Accommodation Capital Programme. So this report will go through to Cabinet next week, and then at full council on the 27th, there will be a presentation on the HRA business plan, which will include some of the information you've received previously regarding proposed rent increases and obviously an outline of this capital programme. So happy to take questions.
Thank you, Vicky. Do we have any questions from members? Councillor Carol Ellis, thank you.
Thank you for that, Vicky. Thank you. Did I hear you say there were 430 voids? Is that currently or is that expected? Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. 430 is the average number of voids we have per year.
Okay. Do we know how many we've got now?
We do, and there is a voids paper later on the agenda that will outline the current number of voids.
I was just wondering to make me understand how far that money would go. That was all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think, Carol, it is coming up later. And hopefully you'll still be here because you're one of the councillors that's actually. So, Sean, do you want to come in just in case they leave? Yes, please. Sean is going to provide the information you're asking.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Chair. In terms of the voids paper, I don't know if members have had time to review it, those quarter datas 1, 2 and 3. It shows what we've been holding from the last quarters, but also for members that have been attending scrutiny, the journey we've been on over the past few years, the backlog we've had since the pandemic, the ask of Welsh Government in terms of our spend, and the quality that we now must reach, along with compliance as well. So yeah, the figures are there for us to look at. In terms of what's created a few issues for us, along with when we were going through the pandemic, was the lack of resources, both internal and external, along with budget allocation for those works. We've established a framework in place now. The contractors who were on that framework, there were 6 in total, reduced to 5 last year. 2 of those contractors had paused works over the past few months due to some restructuring, internal restructuring, and changes within their departments. They've now asked for additional work, so we're back up to the 5, a full complement of contractors. With regards to voids, again, something we've discussed, there are some properties that are quick to turn around, they're classed as sort of minors or normals, and some that are major and they require a significant investment. We've tapped into the TACP grant funding. We've secured quite a considerable amount of grant funding from Welsh Government to refurbish some of those empty properties and allocate to the homeless service options team. So we're on our way to reduce that backlog, but unfortunately the budgets weren't what they needed to be. So what the teams have been doing, along with finance, is working through the capital programme to try and release some additional funding where possible. As the Chief Officer's already mentioned, a lot of the components that we installed from 2015 onwards were considerably high quality. They've lasted. When we've gone to revisit those components for renewal or assessment or survey, or if a tenant's reported a repair to us, they're still in a very, very good condition 10, 15 years on. So we believe that we can push some of those life cycles out and maintain some of those kitchens where we can. And that will help us release additional funding for the voids as well. There is a big ask from us for Welsh Government in terms of WHKS 23. We will come on to that paper shortly, because that will impact on voids, repairs, and everything across the housing portfolio in terms of what we do as a council. But we've still got a long way to go in terms of trying to address some of the challenges that Welsh Government have put on the screen, I suppose. Is that okay in terms of an update, Chair?
Thank you, Sean. I think Carol was asking really how many voids we have at present. I think, is that correct, Carol? Excuse me. Hello, Carol, is that correct? You want to know the number of voids we have at present, or is it the annual number?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I wanted to know the actual amount of voids that we have at present, please.
So is it this figure of 233? Yeah, so it's 233, Carol.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Bibby.
In the event of there being no further questions, Madam Chair, I'd like to formally move the 2 recommendations.
I think Rachel Cobelli would just like to come in.
Thank you, members. Just to clarify as well, so the average number of voids that comes on through our year over the last couple of years has been about 430 over that year. So what that will mean from the funding perspective is, although that we'll be able to keep on top of the voids as they're coming in, based on the average cost of doing a void at the moment, what it will mean is financially it will be very difficult unless we get other sources of funding through to get that backlog of repairs down by backlog of voids down by any considerable amount. We spent over 8 million last year on bringing that voids down, that voids target down, but unfortunately with the HRA at the moment the reserves are at the lowest level that they've been at. The agreed level that we've had is 7%. So we have no additional funding within the HRA itself at the moment to do any additional backlog of voids. However, if we are successful in securing additional funding from other sources through Welsh Government, which Sean and the team are continually trying to do, then that will obviously improve the position. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Right, but before we move on, there is a very important part to this agenda item, and that's the relocation of £3.15 million to fund the voids. Have we all considered that and we're happy with that? Yeah, okay. Well, can we have a seconder? We've had a mover, Councillor Rush. So we'll go to the recommendations on page 19. And the first one is to consider the HRA Capital Programme 26-27 as set out in Appendix A. And then recommendation 2, to consider the proposed relocation of 3.15 million of funding to the voids budget. Could we all show, please? Yeah, I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Right, we're now going on to agenda item 7, the Welsh Housing Quality Standards, WHQS2, pages 27 to 62. And it's a report of Chief Officer and the Cabinet Member, it says here. So we're going over, well, is it Sean or Vicky? We're going to Sean first, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, as I said, this links into voids. So yeah, apologies. I thought that we'd seen the papers on there. So yeah, the total voids is 2 through 3 currently. And Welsh Housing Quality Standards and the Renting at Homes Wales Act is something that will impact what the voids team do and the repairs team within the Housing Asset Service, along with the Capital Works team as well. So this is an update. I have brought this paper to scrutiny before, in terms of where are we, the milestones that Welsh Government have set us. At every meeting, again, I must say, with Welsh Government, we have Flintshire Council the first to put their hand up and say, where is this funding going to come from? What we can achieve at the moment with the resources we have in place and the budget allocation is everything we did in WHQS 1, which is in the main safe and secure properties that are fit for purpose. They have, obviously, the kitchens and bathrooms are replaced as and when required, efficient heating systems, and safe gardens, etc., to play, and a vibrant community. So something WHQS1 is something we achieved as a council. Welsh Government have now increased those standards, and it's referred to as WHQS 23, WHQS2. And within the paper, it goes through some of those asks. The milestones, if members just have a look on the pages and under sections 1 and 2, it says what we should be doing as a council towards achieving net zero. We've got the digital connectivity as well, and a lot of environmental works within the communities is what Welsh Government are asking for. By March 25, we as a landlord should have completed quite a number of things, which was assessing our stock. And we were able to do that based on the information we already had. And then obviously we'd move on from there and complete some tenant engagement on the programme, just as we did in 2014 on WHQS1. And then we'd have to prepare and submit a compliance policy. So that's something we did last year. We submitted the compliance policy to Welsh Government. We're yet to hear back from them. We submitted that in June or July. We're not too sure if we are going to have any feedback from Welsh Government, or whether it's going to be a case that they're just going to accept that's our compliance policy, and that's how we're going to comply with WHQS2. By March of 27, what we should have done is produced target energy pathways. Again, I've talked about them before. So as a council, we're supposed to have a look at our stock and trying to assess through surveys and through technical assessments, how will every property within Flintshire that the council owns, so HRA owned, will move from a band E or D in terms of their energy performance up to an A, and how would we get there, and how much will it cost, and which order should we do the works. So we've commenced those surveys. We've commenced them as a pilot just at the back of Q2. So they're progressing quite well, and then the information will feed back to us as a department, and we're able to assess the costs needed. So the costs will become a little bit more accurate rather than just our estimates back in 25. And then by March of 2034, we should be able to be in a position to say our stock complies with those standards. What we will be doing in March 27 is going back to Welsh Government to say, well, we've done the assessment work, we've done the energy pathways, this is now how much it's going to cost us as a council to achieve WHQS2. And I believe that's where we'll be having conversations with how long will it actually take us to get these properties from an E or a D or even a C up to an A. The original estimate a couple of years ago was around about 270 million. We've now estimated it to be around about 220, 210. That's on top of what we already do. So that's a considerable amount of investment that we need to find, and it's something that we as a council don't have. So there's going to be some challenging discussions ahead, I would think. Tenant engagement on the programme. Again, there's appendices within the paper show what we were asking our tenants in terms of what would you prefer us to prioritise as a council. So again, would it be internal works, kitchens, bathrooms, heating systems, rewires, or would it be external or environmental works? So those results are on the paper for members to have a look at. We had a very good response rate, and they help us shape our programmes moving forward. Quite a bit of detail within the questions, as you can see, in terms of what we're going to be providing going forward. What Welsh Government are asking us to do when we have open spaces is engage with those communities and ask what would they like to see completed in terms of regeneration. What we are finding on the returns from the STAR survey, a lot of asks for car parking because traffic congestion is getting worse, but also security and lighting. So that's something that we're actively looking at and have been doing for the past couple of years in certain complexes as well and communities. So that's the WHQS update. We do have the compliance document attached to that, and that's something that's gone off to Welsh Government. And what members will be able to see is where Welsh Government and WHQS2 asked us to do something, we as a council have then responded to each element to say, as a council, how is Flintshire Council going to comply with those asks? So that's what we've done, and that's attached, Chair. So happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Councillor Rosetta Dolphin. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to ask, you've sort of given a bit of an explanation actually. On page 30, it says that you've shared with the Welsh Government the information that's been received. And then further down, you also say that you've had no feedback from them. They're asking a big ask for us to come up with 270 million to achieve WHQS. You've managed to bring that figure down now to 200 with looking at our stock and the quality of the kitchens and bathrooms, meaning that they would last longer, we think. Is there, I just think it's ignorant of the Welsh Government, if you like, to be asking us to do something like that. Then when we've given them feedback about what they're asking and the amount of money that we would have to come up with, that they haven't come back with anything that says, you know, they would help, or there's no feedback come back from them at all. And I just think that's really ignorant of them, and maybe we should be asking again, can we have some feedback from it? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sean. Do you want to come back?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you, Councillor. We're in the same position as all the other councils in Wales in terms of they're waiting for their feedback on their submitted compliance policies as well. I appreciate that in the past, when we have submitted the first compliance policy for WHQS1, it did take 2 or 3 months for Welsh Government to come back to us. They did meet with us individually as councils across Wales because everyone's compliance policy is going to be different. We are hoping that they do return with some feedback for us. They do have to accept it. They do have to sign off on it. But I think what's happened is so many councils have put quite detailed compliance policies in, like ourselves. It's taken them a considerable time to get through. We have asked them to feedback. It is quite an important document, as you can imagine. What we believe will transpire is when we've completed this further assessment work, by March 27, and we're in a position to sit down with Welsh Government and say, well, now we've done the surveys, these are the more accurate costs that we have. That's potentially where we might see some changes to WHQS too. A good example of that is when the Welsh Housing Quality Standards were first under consultation, we did feedback as a council. We did have a number of concerns. One of them is about water efficiency. As a council, we do fit water efficiency measures. Baths, for example, that just that have less litres, but they're again the same sizes. So we're quite sort of mindful of what we're doing with properties in terms of energy efficiency. Same with boilers as well. But one of the asks was to install a water butt. So that's something that we've gone back to Welsh Government to say that we're not going to be able to comply with. We've got concerns with Legionella. Again, some of our council properties are restricted. Not every council property in Flintshire has its own garden. So again, I don't think it's been a well thought out standard. And that's what Welsh Government are working through at the moment. They're getting probably quite a lot of feedback from other councils with regards to concerns or issues that we've found. And that's what's taken the time for them to feedback. That's the only thing I can surmise at the moment, Councillor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sean. Cabinet Member, Councillor Brown.
Yeah, thank you. And I've made some notes, but I'll go in reverse. WHQS, I think that's, it's a bit of a dream, isn't it? It's currently unaffordable without being fully funded by those who want to impose us on it, of course. That leads into discussions with those authorities that have got stock retaining council. So I know that it's both at officer and member level that there are discussions taking place about the aspirations of the Welsh Government standard for our properties. And I think the question one, where people were asked about the areas of improvement that was important to them, and obviously internal works was right up there, wasn't it? That was the number one question. The second one was external improvements, and then that leads me then to think, because of the high standards of voids that we are returning back, are people then saying that the external is important to them because existing tenants are seeing what's happening in void properties? Is that another reason? And I think I'm fully supportive of the internal improvements, but I know that we're going to have a discussion about what we're going to be doing about the external improvements. But WHQS, it's a dream, currently unaffordable, and it needs to be funded by those who impose the standards upon us. There's no other way to say it, really, is there? It's a dream.
Councillor Bibby.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just obviously to echo the comments that have been made by the Cabinet Member, obviously as her predecessor. I think we're very much on the same page. It's an incredibly ambitious programme. But with that ambition, and I think that's clearly led by all the best intentions, it needs to be backed up by the funding. And I think also, the feedback that has been provided by local authorities, with Sean and his counterparts, across Wales, is, these are the people that have the responsibility to make this happen, at practical level on the ground. And I think it's incumbent on Welsh Government to take that feedback and that advice very seriously, and for that to inform, the realistic, how realistic it is to deliver this. Again, it's I think with all the best intention in the world to ensure that, council tenants and those living in social housing have, very high quality, properties and but, it needs to be met with the financial resources to be able to deliver it. And I think that's the concern, that, the aspiration's here, but maybe the funding for us to deliver it is still here. But yeah, I think that's just the concern, really, is the funding, and the ability to make these things happen practically. They need to be sort of, the aspiration needs to be aligned with that, doesn't it?
Thank you. I beg his belief, really. We can all have aspirations, but we've got to be realistic about it, and they should be in the Welsh Government, I think, anyway.
Councillor Carol Ellis.
Councillor Carol Ellis, thank you.
Thank you. I agree with what everyone said. It's absolutely shocking that the standards are required without any funding to actually take it forward. But I was wondering, because what the cabinet member said, yeah, I'm in full agreement. But I was wondering, how on earth do you prioritise what to do? I see the tenants' requests, but how do you prioritise what to do with, in effect, so little money to do so much? It must be a very difficult job to actually prioritise what work to do. If someone could help me with that one, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Are we going back to Sean here? Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, quite difficult, Council, in terms of how we would prioritise work with a limited budget. One thing we do focus on for the properties compliance in terms of, firstly, obviously, are they safe and secure? Is there anything we need to address there? Then we would look at, for the WHQS1, anything over and above that would be the energy efficiency of those properties. So if we've got any properties that are performing badly in terms of their thermal retention, energy, etc., energy usage, so we'll package them up as a separate piece of work, and we'd have to allocate some budget to them and prioritise them accordingly. Obviously, we always look at those properties or those tenants who are vulnerable. So a number of departments and teams collectively work together across the council. We have the energy team as well. Prioritise works, whatever it may be. Budget to work to. WHQS1, as I said before, it was the right standard, and I appreciate why Welsh Government have refreshed some of those standards and asks. But it's the net zero target. It's those bringing those properties from, let's say, a level C to an A. That's going to cost us quite a considerable amount of funding and budget in terms of works, the measures, the cost of the materials, and the technology that goes along with it. And unfortunately, at the present moment, we're all paying a premium for the same thing. I think if Welsh Government were to relax the timeframes for us to achieve the standards, that will allow new technology to come into the marketplace, be tested, be more readily available, and more cost effective for us as a council to look at utilising. But we must remind ourselves that a number of the council properties, again, some of the best built in the UK, are some of the oldest as well and come with their own challenges. And some of them aren't meant to reach an A, because what we will do is we will basically suffocate that property in terms of its ventilation, just in terms of trying to retain heat, and that causes other problems for us, as we've discussed before. So yeah, quite difficult to prioritise, but we do our very best.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do we have anyone else wanting to come in here? Councillor Bibby.
Just to formally move the recommendation, Madam Chair.
Well, I'm rather concerned about the recommendation, actually. I don't think it mirrors what we've been talking about today. So we've been trying to cobble together something, and perhaps you can have your input to see whether you're in favour of it. Sorry.
So the suggested change would be, because at the moment it's asking the committee to support the capital investment programme. So it would be that the committee note the capital investment programme as outlined within the report in the next phase of delivery as it moves towards complying with the new updated Welsh housing quality standards and requirements, ensuring the obligations placed upon the council are met, but remain concerned around the funding to be provided by Welsh Government in order to meet this obligation.
So you're happy with that? Yes.
I'm sure Kerry made that far more articulate.
Thank you. Far better than I would. I tried to cobble it together and Kerry took over. Do we have a seconder, please? Councillor Rush, thank you. Can I have a show of hands? Thank you very much indeed. Davis is watching me like a hawk to get the right number. We're now on to agenda item 8. Mould and condensation, pages 63 to 80. And we're going to Chief Officer Vicky Clark.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just do a brief introduction and then I'll pass over to Sean. But essentially, this is a report that the committee have received a number of times now in terms of what our response is to mould and condensation reports. And we also take the opportunity within this report to update the committee on our current position regarding disrepair and the number of disrepair claims we've received, settled and then successfully defended. Obviously, as committee members are aware, there is much more oversight now of mould and condensation reports, particularly given the tragic case a number of years ago in Rochdale, and indeed the law has been updated and legislation has been updated in relation to how we need to respond to these. That legislation came in towards the end of last year and gave us very specific timescales. So I'm just going to let Sean run through how we respond to them and then provide an update on disrepair. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the paper, again, this is something that has been presented before, but this is just an update in terms of where we are currently. Just to reassure members as well, any tenant reports, damp or mould or condensation or wherever it may be to us, is assessed, it's prioritised within our contact centre or within our teams, however it's reported through, or whether it be through yourselves as councillors. The important thing we ask is that tenants report any concerns or any repairs to the contact centre, and that's quite important. We're undertaking repairs by appointment now, so we're asking tenants for their availability, and where possible, we're trying to allocate some slots. So that's the most effective and efficient way of dealing with repairs and logging those repairs. What we're trying to work towards also is asking our tenants to send us pictures. We will be moving forward in the future, hopefully looking at video calls as well. So that, again, that might be something that might be useful for us to undertake that assessment for any repair, really. But again, yeah, just to reassure members, any report for mould and condensation is prioritised. We can get out there the same day if needs be. We send our contractors and surveyors out to assess and clean and treat mould and condensation. This is not a blame sort of culture that we have within the service area. We just want to assist our tenants as quickly as we can. And there'll be some of those tenants who are unable to clean and treat the mould. So that's something that we offer currently, and that's a free of charge. It's not a chargeable service. What we do is we assess the mould and condensation, we do the treatments, the reports are assessed, and any concerns or any asset failures we have are scheduled on the system very, very quickly. Any concerns we have for tenants are dealt with separately. So again, if we feel that a tenant needs to decant for a temporary to a temporary property for a period of time, that's something that we'll assess as well. And that's something we have done in the past when something unfortunately hadn't been reported to us. The mould and condensation was quite concerning the property, high levels of moisture. So we organised a decant for that tenant to move out. So we're compliant in terms of AWAB's law. Any report that comes in, we deal with it immediately, and it's assessed and prioritised accordingly. With regards to housing disrepair, this sort of goes hand in hand. This is what we're finding a lot of disrepair claims coming into the council for. And again, unfortunately, what we're finding is a number of solicitors are going out. They're actually advising tenants that they work for the council. So that's been reported to us directly from a tenant as well, that the person entered their home and advised them that they worked for the council. So only when they asked for ID, they realised that they didn't. We've had one disrepair claimant solicitor go into a local Wetherspoons in Mould and shout at the top of his voice, has any council tenant got any, or any social tenant got any repairs outstanding? I can help you claim some money. So again, this is the length some of these people will go to. We've got a very good track record with dealing with housing disrepair, but what we're finding, a high number of claims or concerns submitted through that claims process is relating to mould and condensation. What I've done within the paper, I've left some of the examples in, again, just to remind members where legal costs, I think it was up to around about £20,000, were going to be recharged back to the tenant because they were the costs of the social landlord at the time. I don't believe they went ahead with that charge, but it was just to prove and show and evident that if you go and make a claim against us and you do it in the wrong way, then potentially you'll be liable for our defence costs, our legal costs. And that's something the claimant solicitors don't say. So they just say it's no win, no fee. So they think, oh, I'm not going to get a fee from them as a solicitor, but they could have a recharge from us as a council. That's not something we're doing currently, but that's something, again, we may have to look into given the discussions we had about voids, budgets, etc. We have to start recharging and recouping some of these costs at some point. Housing disrepair claims, as you can see, I've left the 23, 24 and 24, 25 data in there. We're currently in this financial year 25, 26 under item 108. Quite positive in terms of how the team deal with that in-house. You can see the average claims have come down last year, the costs as well. We deal with these claims internally, so our internal team jump on these straight away, and we've got quite a good track record with regards to defending some of these claims. Within the paper, again, I've included the mould and condensation guide. Quite happy for members to have a look at that, offer any suggestions you may have. We feel that guide is at a point now that we're very, very happy with it. We do send it out. We ask our housing team to send that out as well with any tenants who may be struggling to ventilate or heat their home. And of course, we offer advice, and we always get the energy team to call on any tenants who may be struggling as well in terms of their bills. So quite a good guide. It offers some useful tips. Again, things like if you are cooking or bathing, make sure you ventilate those rooms adequately. Drying clothes as well. Try and open windows and air the property as much as you can, just to get that fresh, dry air in. And the second enclosure is the housing disrepair letter that we send out. And we just want to make it very, very clear for our tenants. The safest thing they can do is report it to us first. And then any complaints they may have, they can raise that through the complaints process. So it's there to protect them as a tenant. And we as a council are there to serve our tenants as well. So that's where we are in terms of an update, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Sean. It's amazing what you can get in Wetherspoons, isn't it? I thought it was just cheap beer. Councillor Rosetta Dolphin, please.
Thank you, Chair. I've never received anything like that from Wetherspoons. Right, I wanted to ask, this is, I know we've gone a lot about our residents claiming and things like this, but we need to deal with the mould and condensation that they have. For a lot of them, these are real issues that need sorting out. I've got a tenant in my ward who has, I don't know what you call it. It's like an air pump in her attic that circulates air within the property. When I've spoken to one of our supervisors, who is very competent, I have to say, he's told me that maybe this needs servicing or cleaning, which is something that they're going to look at. But this is not done on a regular basis. It's not something that we do as part of a cleaning regime. And I think we should be. If we're putting these things into some of our properties, they must be needed, and that's at a cost. Well, we need to make sure that they're running as efficiently as they can be. So I just wanted to know, where do you think we should be in doing a regular servicing on these? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rosetta. Back over to Sean. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. Any electrical appliance is tested and serviced under the 5-year testing regime. And that would include extractor fans, for example. They might be cleaned or cleared of any debris, dust, etc. But what we do find sometimes that it's sometimes more cost effective to replace that fan before the kitchen renewal is due. So, for example, kitchen life cycles are around about 15 years. We have pushed that out now, but the fan probably won't last that long. So sometimes it's replaced sooner, every 10 years perhaps. But you are right, every appliance and every ventilation system that we put in should be serviced and tested. So if you can provide me the details for that property and we can look into that. The system that you refer to, I think, is a positive input ventilation system. So what that does, it draws dry air from the loft, the attic space, and feeds that into the property through filters. That's very much like having the windows on a trickle vent. It allows that dry air to circulate. And I'm sure, as everyone will know, that helps with any moisture on the window, which is usually the coldest surface within the room. So those ventilation systems can be quite effective. But again, what we're finding when we are going out to a number of these properties, it's a case of just supporting our tenants in terms of how to heat and ventilate their home in the right way and at the right times. Again, this is not a blame thing. This is something that we've created ourselves a little bit in terms of, as a council, we've made these properties as efficient as possible. We've got double glazed windows. We've got secure by design doors. We're topping up loft insulations. We've had grants from Welsh Government over the years. So I'm sure members are aware that we used to have top-up schemes. Cavity wall insulation is extracted and refilled now. So these properties are becoming very, very airtight. And tenants are probably, and I understand why, very sort of unwilling to open a window when they've just paid to heat their home. So the ventilation systems that we have, the extractor fans and those positive input ventilation systems are all very, very efficient, very low cost to run, usually the same as a light bulb. But can be quite effective rather than opening windows. I think we've got quite a long way to go on what we need to do in terms of the ventilation strategy moving forward for all properties across Flintshire. But you're right, it starts with ensuring the systems that we have installed are working correctly as they should be. So if you could provide those details to me, Councillor, we'll look into it further. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
So, Sean, how often are these cleaned, these, whatever they are, ventilation system?
Thank you, yeah. They should be tested and serviced every 5 years. Some components require to be cleaned and filters changed every 10, some sooner than that. It depends on obviously the usage and every circumstances, every scenario is unique, I guess. So there are some filters that may need to be cleaned every 3 years, depending on where that property is in terms of a location. It could be that it's quite exposed in a rural area, so it has quite a lot of wind, and from that it generates quite a bit of dust, and that may find its way into the loft space and onto the filters. So that should be checked every 5 years by the engineers undertaking the electrical test. So that's something we'll look into find out. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Rosetta, are you happy with that?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can I just add that these pumps, or wherever they are there to do a job, and maybe every 5 years is a bit too long for it. I don't know. I agree with you. A lot of tenants, they can't afford to keep opening the windows. You know, it's like you've said, they've just heated the house. Why would they want to open a window and let all the heat out again? You know, yeah. All right. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rosetta. Councillor Linda Thew.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just agreeing with Rosetta, Councillor Dolphin, and people are too frightened to turn the heating on. This has been a really cold winter, and the thought that people have got it's been very damp as well, so they've got clothes on their radiators. They're not going to open the windows to let the precious heat out, and it's just a vicious circle, really. It's unfortunately, you know, especially pensioners at this time of year, they're not going to open the window. And so, you know, it's just a self-perpetuating cycle, I'm afraid.
Sorry, right, over to Sean again, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think the guide that we send out is there to support tenants as well in terms of obviously ventilating their home. I think if you look at a day where it's mild weather, that's something where tenants are probably more likely to have their windows open and air the property during the day, and obviously have then the heating systems on at night. I think it's just all about careful ventilation. So again, when a tenant or a homeowner is utilising their bathroom, they're having a shower, having the window open just a little bit and having the extractor on, and well after they've finished bathing, will help just take that high moisture out of that room. Keeping doors closed whilst you're cooking and bathing, that's something that can help. But when the property is being ventilated, having doors open and having that air movement throughout the property, that dry air, is equally as important as well. So the guide supports tenants with that. We are mindful that the cost of heating their home, tenant's home, is becoming higher and higher. That's why it's placed on us as a landlord to make sure the systems that we have in place are working as they should be, whether that be the heating system or ventilation system. So yeah, I can assure members we do service and test and clean those components as and when required, especially referring to any manufacturer's guidance or instructions for replacement. But it's something that we always assess when we're at property as well. So if we are undertaking a clean and we find the filters are going to need to be replaced sooner rather than later, we can individually change the life cycles of that component on that property. That then tells us when we need to go back next. But again, if Councillor Rosetta Dolphin could share the details with me, I can look into that with the team and we can do a bit of a deep dive. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Do we have any more questions? Councillor Clayton, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I was just interested in the tenants that have to move out because of the mould. About how many a year do we have of these tenants, and where do they go to? Do we provide housing for them in a temporary, and what's the cost of this? Thank you.
That's a good question because I had one in my ward team. Sure.
Thank you, Chair. I can come back to you with the figures separately on that. I can assure members it's not many at all. Majority of the works that we undertake can be completed whilst the tenant remains in their home. So, for example, we have a number of repairs on the system right now in terms of plastering works, and that can be quite disruptive for some tenants. So, on the whole, we undertake those works whilst the tenant resides at the property. There are times, however, where the works could be quite intrusive, or there could be some medical conditions we need to consider, or vulnerability, so we have to move those tenants out. What we try to do is utilise, where possible, any spare properties that we've got. Decants are often very, very short, where possible, or there's times where the tenant stays with family and friends just for a couple of days. But I can come back to you with the figures and the costs. What we tend to do is the tenant resides, the tenant who resides in their own property, the rent and everything stays as it is. We move the tenant into a temporary property on a temporary period. So the costs are sort of already covered, really. The property that we're moving to is already empty, but there are some moving costs and support costs that we provide. So I can come back to you separately on those average costs. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Are there any more questions from anyone? Councillor Bibby, I know what you're going to say before you say it.
Yeah, just with no further questions, just to move the recommendations, Madam Chair. I'm just helping the flow of the meeting, Madam Chair.
You keep our flow so free. Thank you very much. I'm going to go to the recommendation now to endorse the contents of the report and to support housing assets to continue to manage mould and condensation service requests, along with the housing disrepair protocol, ensuring the obligations placed upon the council are met. So do we have a seconder, please? Councillor Clayton, thank you. Can we have a show of hands? Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. How is your voice holding up, Sean? We're now agenda item 9, voids management.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, holding up much better than last week. Thank you. So I hope you can hear me clearly. With regards to the voids figures, yeah, I know we've covered this, so I can go into a bit more detail now. So Q3, you can see the voids that we received are 120, and the number of voids that we've completed 106. So less than what's come in, which is not the way we want to obviously address the backlog. The reason for that being is we have the month of December in there in that quarter. We also had the 2 contractors who haven't been delivering any work for us at the moment. I have shared with members before that the 2 contractors out of the 5, one of them was ranked 5th on the framework and one of them was ranked 4th. So they were the 4th and 5th ranked contractors who had asked just to pause their work allocation whilst they went through some restructuring. They're back on board now. The quality of the work that they produce is very, very good, but it's the amount that they can actually do for us. That's why they're ranked 4th and 5th. However, that will complement our work. So now that they're back online, hopefully we can allocate some properties to them and we can start to again address that backlog. Number of lettings by the housing management team, 95. It goes down into the type of voids that we have currently. So majors, 91, minors, 51. You can see there to be confirmed 91 has jumped up. Again, that's just because of the December period. We haven't been able to survey that many, but we'll bring that back down. Then we've got the high demand properties. So 208 of those 233 are already waiting to be allocated and tenants already signed up potentially. And low demand 19, but they're currently in progress. So those 19 will move up to that band. Types of properties, general needs 149, sheltered 84, 1 beds 83, 2 beds 62, 3 beds 84. So quite a considerable jump there on the 3-bed properties. No 4 beds, we've only got 4 beds there, but nothing higher than that at the moment. Q3, top reasons for terminations. So we have deceased, transfer to FCC other properties or residential care. Work allocation is down at the moment, 80. But again, as I said before, that will be increasing now that we've secured some additional budget as well and the 2 additional contractors have come online. On hold assets, we've got the high rise there in Flint. They're on hold because they're having some major works undertaken. As I've shared before, we only want 1 contractor working in these category 1 buildings for obvious reasons. Once we find a gap in the programme, what we will be doing is undertaking some void works. So we're just liaising with the principal contractor who's undertaking the fire safety works, finding a gap in their programme, and ascertaining when we can move in there and undertake some void refurbishment works. Sheltered housing review assets, we have the 25 in Llwynaled and Llwynbuino. Majority of them have all been worked upon and are in the process of being allocated to the homeless service and the housing options team for reallocation because we've redesignated that scheme from sheltered. And low demand assets, we have the 4 properties in Knights Green. Again, some access issues that we are looking into. We're trying to ascertain if we can install some elevators there because they are a very good sheltered scheme in Flint. And I believe if we can address the access issues, along with some other minor regeneration concerns, we'll be able to make that quite a high demand asset once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Do we have any questions of Sean in relation to the voids? No. How long do they think that the work is going to take on Bolingbroke, Sean?
It's going to take quite a few months in each block. What we're undertaking there is we've had a £4 million grant from Welsh Government, so we've been very, very successful getting that funded in. We've got Bolingbroke, Castle Heights and Richard Heights. They're all having fire safety works undertaken. Once we have completed the works in Castle Heights, we'll move to Bolingbroke Heights and Richard Heights. But we're doing other works in between that and survey work as well. Once we've finished the fire safety works, which we envisage each block will be around about 6 months, we'll move on to the other, but we'll have some other works programmed to follow on. What we're looking at doing there is undertaking some efficiency works to the boilers. We're looking at the elevators, and they will follow on once the fire safety works have been completed. We are mindful, though, if you're a tenant in those blocks, you don't want a contractor in non-stop for 12 months. So we're trying to have some breaks in there as well, and trying to strategically look at the survey work that we can undertake just to provide a bit of a pause and gap in between. And that will allow us then also to undertake some void works and other repair work we want to undertake. So fire safety work, 6 months in each one, but we've got some additional works to follow next year as well.
Dear me, major work, isn't it? Well, we don't have any votes on this. This is just a report that Sean kindly brings to us now quarterly. So if there are no more questions, we will move on to agenda item 10, Housing Support and Homelessness Service update, and we're going over to Sean. And it's Sean. Right, we're going to Sean.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, members. I am just conscious of time because I believe some of you've got a meeting to go to. So obviously, I've given the key figures for this month. It's a slightly different template again because it's a bit of a work in progress. So just to go through the key areas, really, we have currently got 499 clients accessing all forms of emergency and temporary accommodation, including 66 that are unfortunately outside of our county area. Main reason again for the presentation is around loss of rented accommodation and sort of relationship breakdown. One of the requests at last month's meeting was to include data around presentations from prison leavers, which we've been able to capture for this month, and we will be able to do that going forward. And then also what we've also set in here is around clients accessing temp accommodation into long-term suitable accommodation. So that is, as it stands at the end of December, that was 51. Which is encouraging. Just to make members aware that we did see a decrease in clients in accessing temp accommodation at the end of December, but that always happens because of the Christmas period. Family and friends will accommodate for a short period of time, but then naturally we do see that increase in January, which we're already feeling. I think we had something like 20 requests for accommodation last week alone. So it's significant, but that is always the case in January. One of the requests from members last month was to have more of an age range overview, which we've been able to provide in this update. So you can see there the breakdown. This is around placements. So although we have 499 people accessing temp accommodation, that's made up of 389 placements. So obviously that's where you've got couples and families. But one of the outlining figures there again is around the percentage of single males accessing our temp accommodation, which again is not an unusual trend. And that's pretty much a whistle-stop tour of this information sharing report. There's one thing that hasn't been captured, and that is the request from members around where clients are presenting from. So what areas of Flintshire and potentially beyond where they've come from. Unfortunately, that's not something we're going to be able to do until April time. It's just that the system isn't providing that data, and we're doing a lot of work with IT to make sure that we can capture that data because it's important for us internally, but it's also part of Welsh Government's requirements from April. And obviously, if that data is available sooner, then I'll bring that in, share that in terms of this meeting. So appreciate it's a whistle-stop tour, just conscious of time. I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Don't let the time put you off. Yeah, because we'll still have plenty of people left. And I think you said, Sean, that going forward you are going to give monthly figures instead of just the current. You're going to show us each month to see how they're fluctuating. Is that right?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, that is something that I talked about last month. I know Sean does a quarterly report, and that's something, it's just unfortunate with the timing of us getting all the data and reconciling it after Christmas, has not been able to do the full Q3. So what I can look at doing is do that next month for each quarter. And then if you want, then I can incorporate the template to show the month before as well. I think that's what you're asking, isn't it? Okay. Is that what you're asking, Chair? Yeah.
Yeah, but I think each month, if we show the previous 2 months or something like that, which gives us an idea as to how we're going, just for us to keep an eye on it. Something else came into, oh yes, you've now shown us, thank you, clients out of county placements. But do we know how many of our homeless are being housed out of Flintshire?
Thanks, Chair. So yeah, there's 66 clients accessing are open to our service, but unfortunately just due to pressures on the accommodation we've got available, 66 of those are placed. They tend to be Chester and Denbighshire at the moment.
I've read that incorrectly. I thought they were coming in from out of county. So how many of those, you know?
So that's part of the work that we're working on in terms of getting the data to provide that information around where clients have presented from. Is that what you're asking me?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's what we're working on at the moment, and hopefully April will be the date that we'll be able to share that. But if we can do that earlier, it's just something that we don't capture at the moment. So we're just trying to make sure that the systems allow us to capture that data to then inform our work with Welsh Government Plus for this scrutiny meeting.
Oh, good. I'm talking to myself. Thank you. Yeah, I was talking about AI, which I think this council is dipping its toe into with social services. But I've read there are councils who are using it with homelessness data. Perhaps could we look at that? Thank you.
Yeah, that is something we are dipping our toe in. It's Power BI in its infancy with us. It's the way that colleagues in IT are moving forward in that direction, and it is something that at the moment we collect all of our data. We call it the back office, but it's just a sub system off the the customer record management where we all school admissions, blue bins, requests and stuff like that. So that is something we're working on, and we are in the process of just pulling together names from Sean and Jen and Paul's area to get some represented staff to go on some training to allow us to use that and really test it, and that will then assist with this data going forward. So it's definitely something we're working on.
So next month you'll be able to show us a couple of months. Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you. Councillor Linda Thew.
Thank you, Chair. Before I disappear to the next meeting, there's just one quick question I'd like to know is the number of staff that are involved in the housing triages. So they've completed 120. So what is it a small core of staff that triage people? I'd just be interested. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, so the triage predominantly sits within the housing register function. So that's the front arm of the service. So just to give you a bit of a walkthrough, somebody wants to ring up to access social housing and potentially maybe at risk of homelessness or currently homeless, then they go through to the contact centre as it stands, and then we pick that up from the housing register team, and they're booked in throughout the month, but then we will do on the day urgent calls for those who are presenting as immediately homeless. Also Connect pick up that function as well. They're all trained in completing the housing triages. So it's 3 core members of staff that complete those housing triages. But then obviously we've got resilience within the team around homeless officers, temp accommodation officers. We can all pick up that duty because it's a template that the same set of questions are asked of every client accessing our service.
And just one more question. What happens to the So you've seen 120, 100 are, regarded as homeless. What advice is given to the 20 that aren't successful?
Yeah, so the 20 that aren't successful will be around showing other housing options advice. So it could be that we haven't established that they've got a tenancy agreement that's valid. So it just depends on the circumstances. So not everybody that presents as homelessness is always picked up, because it could be, for example, that someone has a permanent address that they've left in Birmingham and they visited Flintshire during the COVID period, or before or after, and they fancied coming to live here. Well, that's not necessarily something we'll be able to pick up. So it's always around the individual circumstances. And the point of that sort of split out in data is just to demonstrate that not everybody who feels that they're homeless, I could say I'm homeless today, but I've got my own accommodation. We have to verify and do that evidence-based approach to make sure that somebody is genuinely homeless and needs our assistance. Thank you.
Thank you, Sian.
Thank you. Cabinet member.
Sorry, yeah, it's not about people, but I'm just thinking, and it might not even be for this report, but it's probably just a suggestion from me, that we might want to look at accommodation that we've lost, where we've lost landlords or they've sold up, and then also look at accommodation that is going into the, new accommodation that we're getting for the homeless team as well, just to give a bit of a background, because the numbers, I mean, single males, we know, don't we? And it's what we're doing to try to secure other accommodation, whether it's things that we're doing ourselves or with partners or with potential partners. It might just, I don't think it can be done monthly, but I think it needs to be there somewhere.
Good suggestion. I think. Yeah, it makes more of a full picture, really, for us to look at, just looking at figures, as you say.
Chair, I don't know, we have got on the forward work programme, we have got the fuller homelessness update to the committee. We get that report annually, which is a fuller report, and that's scheduled for March. I'm just wondering if that's something that maybe can be picked up in that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Kerry. Yeah, we can look at doing that. We do have that data around what's coming through the pipeline as well via TACP. The 5 that we get each quarter from Jen Griffiths' area as well. Plus we have dedicated landlord function. So they work really hard at attracting and retaining landlords. So there is stuff that we can do around that. We have been working on data that supports to share where TA is within the authority as well, which I suppose is quite key for members. So yeah, there's other stuff that we can incorporate that. And then if there's something that we want to pull out of that larger report that we then do, we can do that. Yeah.
Councillor Rush, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Just a quick one, Sian. How does our homelessness compare with, our neighbouring counties? Is there any, do you phone the officer in there and ask what's going on? Because I think if our success could be our downfall, really, by, if people coming from out of county know that Flintshire, you'll get a house or you'll get accommodation there. People from other counties who are near us will all pile into us, costing us more, and our homelessness going up. Do you have any figures from other counties? Or?
Thanks, Councillor. Yeah, it's quite a good question, actually. Vicky and I and the managers within the service met with our representative from Welsh Government last week, the week before, and we asked this very same question. My background is benefits, and we got a report every quarter from DWP to show where we were benchmarking with other authorities around our performance. We don't get that from Welsh Government, although it is in the public domain. Biostats Wales, but there's always around a 3-month lag on that. So that's something we have been championing, because I think that's really important, just to see where we are. We're not unique. We obviously work really, we have great partnership working with Conway, Denbighshire and other authority, Gwynedd and so on, but we don't actually have that data. It's just sort of informal, chats and conversations. But just to sort of reassure you that, yeah, we could be a product of our own success, because we follow the legislation. But that means that if someone presents and they've been shoehorned from Wrexham to come to Flintshire, because obviously everyone's quite precious around accommodation costs and so on, we would make sure that that person is eligible for our support. And we don't just accept people without doing that full assessment to make sure that we should be the authority that picks them up. Yeah.
That's a good question. Councillor Bibby.
Yeah, thanks very much, Madam Chair. Just leading on to what Councillor Rush said, it would be my understanding that if somebody was to present in Flintshire but were resident in another local authority, then they would be referred back to their own local authority to claim duty.
That's councillor. Not necessarily. It depends on the reason why they're presenting. It could be that they're fleeing violence, risk. So it just very much depends on the person. So all of the team are qualified to make that initial assessment, glean all of the information. What we do is we have different duties within the current homeless legislation where it gives us the right and the time to make those really deep inquiries around how someone has arrived at Flintshire and what that looks like. So that is why times we do have people that aren't residents of Flintshire accessing our support, because if within the legislation there's a part that says if someone's fleeing, and the bar for fleeing violence is very low as well, in terms of what evidence they have to provide, so if it's domestic abuse and other forms of, it can be inside the family, abuse doesn't necessarily have to be a partner. So that's why we make sure that we work really hard and our staff are well trained to make sure, and we do deliver the legislation correctly. And that was pulled out as part of the independent review, that we do follow legislation. Thank you.